Hey everybody, Joe here from Millennial Homesteading. Made a video yesterday, and we're going to make one today about something that the younger generation really doesn't know much about. If you're into hot rodding and hot rod cars and stuff like that, then you know what I'm about to talk about just based off of the equipment in front of me. Today we're going to talk about pinstriping. For those of you who don't know, pinstriping is the art of laying down lines or multiple lines on a vehicle or surface to either make an art piece, whether it be a face, a special design, or an accent piece for a panel, or simply just putting the lines along the body of the car to give it a little flair or a little attention. Pinstriping started back as early as the Model T, and sometimes even before that. But it really started hard in the Model T world because Henry Ford would actually employ about 6 pinstripers on a daily basis, knowing that only about 3 of them would show up for work that day. Pinstriping has such grown, but you also see pinstriping on doors, window panes, offices, and stuff like that. And back in the day, it was all done by hand, which was a can of paint and a brush. More so, these brushes, and we'll get into that in a second. I've been pinstriping now for going on about 10 years. I'm not necessarily professional at it, but I really enjoy it. It's like fly fishing to me. It's relaxing, and it's really an art. It's beautiful. It has its own kind of beauty to it when you can sit back and appreciate it. So here in front of us we have some common gear. We have our paints, which this is a special type of paint. This is an oil-based paint. We have our different kinds of brushes. We have our care for our brushes. But we also need things like a palette, which we'll get into. We're going to need paint thinner, and in some cases a hardener. These brushes are unique to pinstriping or scroll work, as they were. This is a scroll pen from Kafka. You can find these at Kafka or Eastwood or eBay or Amazon. But Kafka is he's a guy out west who builds hot rods, does a lot of pinstriping, stuff like that. He's very big in the custom art world, and he actually does a lot of cool work. If you get a minute, I'd suggest checking him out. These are a little bit more traditional. This is what I started with Andrew Mack, and I still use these guys today. Andrew Mack Brush Company uses, these are camel hair brushes. These are called sword stripers or long swords. And these have a very special profile to them. I've got one here that I've kind of dipped in resin. But you can see there's a flat spot on the ferrule where you would put your thumb, and you pinch it against either the crook of your thumb or the crook of your hand. And this literally turns into what would look like a sword. Let me see if I can find one real quick that's actually hardened up. Alright, so this is what it would actually look like when it's dipped in paint. You see that it's very flat, and it's actually, I've done this one on purpose. So that way when you do that, this edge here in the very front lays down a very straight line. And obviously the brush would bend, but the whole point is to lay down a straight line, as straight as possible. And the thicker the brush here, then the fatter the line. But that's a traditional sword striper. That's what I've learned on. That's what most people learn on. It's a good way to start. And I started doing it on glass, because if you can pinstripe on glass, you can pinstripe on paint. So here we have our different sizes. And all the numbers are pretty much the same. The bigger the number, the fatter the brush. So it's the smallest one that we have here. Alright, so this is a double aught, which is 2 zeros. So this is going to be the smallest in the pack. A triple aught and a quad aught are actually smaller than that, but this is a variety pack. So it goes double aught, single aught, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's actually a 5, but we don't have one in this pack. Actually, this is a scroll brush. See how it's got a round ferrule on it? This is designed to stay a tubular style. That's a number 5. So this would be wider than any one of these here. But with these, you can push down on them and you can fan them out. See? You can make it wider. Not always great to do that, but you know, is what it is. These are Max Dragonflies. These are kind of the same things that Kafka's are, but these are longer handles. So you can see by comparison here. Yeah, longer handles. These are actually easier for me to use for striping and scroll work. Scroll work is that real scroll kind of loopy pinstriping style. You see a lot on like low riders and stuff like that out west. But these are actually easier for me to use. But when we care for these brushes, the first time you open up a brush, You want to rinse it off real good because it has a cosmoline on it to protect the hairs. Take it, wash it in warm soap, light soap, that is, and water. Get those bristles nice and loose, and immediately afterwards let it dry. Take it and soak it in oil. Now here we have some brush preserving oil. I'm not sponsored by any of these guys, it's just what I know. Or you can soak it in motor oil. I actually soaked my old Maxon motor oil. You can actually use motor oil as a retarder too on a hot day. You put a little drop of oil in the paint that you're mixing to keep it from drying out too quick. It's all oil based. So we have our once our brushes are conditioned and soaked, we take our brush. I'm just going to use the Kafka since it's loose. We have, in my case, I use a magazine. We take it and we'll just lightly coat the bristles in paint, and then we'll go down and we'll start paleting, which is where we're taking the brush, putting it down, and dragging it. And we're trying to do two things. One, we're mixing the paint into the brush fibers. We're twirling it as we do it, and we're also keeping these bristles straight, because a curved bristle will leave a dragger or a little hairline on pinstriping jobs, and it looks terrible, and then you got to go back to clean it up, and it's just a hassle. So we're trying to keep it straight. We're turning it, we're twirling it. If we were paleting with one of these, we would take it and flip it. Take it and flip it. I'll have to actually do a pinstriping job here soon so you guys can see it. But same thing, we're mixing the paint, and we're also thickening it up a little bit because we want just a little bit of drag. You really have to get a feel for it. You want a little bit of drag on the bristles, that way when you put the brush down, paint just doesn't go everywhere. You can take it and you can get up on tip and you can drag your line. So that's just kind of the beginnings. If you guys haven't seen people do pinstriping, look it up. It's really a dying art. It's big in the hot rod world. I've been blessed enough to take the time to learn it. I've had a lot of good mentors over the years too. But here in Maryland, it's kind of a hit and miss thing. So I know a couple of guys who are really great pinstripers. There's Jason Wharton down on the eastern shore of Maryland. Guy does exceptional work, and I've watched him side by side for a long time. But if you guys get a minute, take time and just learn a skill, learn a dying art. You'll thank me in 100 years maybe, but you know, it's pretty cool to take something that is going away and save it, especially something as cool as this. If you guys don't know who Von Dutch is, not the clothing company. Kenneth Howard, or Von Dutch, was the guy who really brought pinstriping to light. He wasn't the first guy to start pinstriping. He was just the guy who had been in the right place at the right time to catch the attention enough to bring it to light. His nickname was Von Dutch. He had the Caesar, that's the eyeball with the two wings. I actually have it tattooed on my back, along with Ratfink, which is another story for another time, a little hot rod history. He pinstriped the car for a guy, and everybody just kind of went berserk about it. I think it was in the late 50s. And it just called on everybody wanted their car pinstripe because it was the new cool thing to do. And it kind of took off from there. Like I said, he wasn't the first one to do it. He just happened to be the guy to bring it to light. And he did some pretty cool things. He used to do things on set for Steve McQueen. He used to build guns. He used to do motorcycles. The guy is really a pretty cool legend. If you get a minute, seriously look him up. Von Dutch, or Kenneth Howard Von Dutch. That was his real name. Great life, sad ending kind of thing. So, but here soon we'll do a panel. I got some out in the garage I'm working on right now, and you know, take that time out there to learn whatever it is, whatever art you may find. Like, I also do fly tying, I do pinstriping, you know, stuff that my generation, I'm 28, my generation doesn't really do a lot of. But just because you didn't grow up with somebody who pinstriped doesn't mean you can't learn it. Nobody in my family pinstripes. No one. Except me. Nobody in my family really fly fishes. Except me. Just because you weren't taught it doesn't mean that you can't learn it. So, hope you guys are doing well. Talk at you later.